Welcome everybody to our November 18th, 2025 Historic Resources Review Panel meeting. Just want to start to acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory in what we now call City of Edmonton, the traditional homeland for many Indigenous peoples in Canada, as well as the largest community of Inuit south of the 60th, one of the largest communities of Inuit south of the 60th parallel, and the homeland of the Métis Nation of Alberta as well. With that, I just want to acknowledge that we are meeting here November 18th, looking at the minutes from our agenda here. Sorry, just pulling this up. Okay, so we have our agenda here. We have, looks like, 2 items to discuss. Any last minute changes to the agenda, any amendments, anything like that? Not seeing any hands up. Anybody mentioning anything? All right, we'll move that. The agenda is adopted as presented. And then we move on to our minutes from August 12th, 2025. Anybody have any, I don't actually see in the folder. Do we have a link to those minutes actually, Catherine? I don't see them in the folder here from August.
No.
Unless I'm...
Sorry, there's no link.
Okay. Okay, I think, yeah.
We're gonna have to pass a whole schwack of them at the next meeting.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, so I'll move that we discuss the August 12th minutes as well as any previous ones at our whichever meeting is upcoming next for the HRRP, just because we can't review anything that we don't have in front of us. So that is no problem. With that, we have 2 presentations or applications to amend, as I mentioned. We have the first one, Strathcona Rail Community Garden, and the Long Residence. And we have the Community Garden up first on our agenda here. Any last minute questions, concerns before we move into that item from anybody here present? Seeing anyone? Perfect. All right, so I will hand it over to David Johnston from the City of Edmonton Heritage Conservation Unit to discuss item 3, Strathcona Rail Community Garden. Over to you, David.
Great. Thanks, Harrison. Welcome, everyone. Just for those who maybe don't know me, my name is David Johnson. I'm one of the principal heritage planners with the city's heritage conservation team. Just real quick, when an owner or representative of an owner wants to have a site added to the inventory of historic resources, it comes through our team at the city, and we prepare an evaluation document on behalf of the applicant for the site, and then we bring it forward here to the Historic Resources Review Panel for discussion. And if the review panel this evening is accepting of the proposals, they'll make a recommendation to the full Edmonton Historical Board, whose meeting is coming up on November 26th. And if the full historical board accepts the recommendation from this review panel, the board will then write a letter to our branch manager recommending that the sites be added to the city's inventory. So just wanted to give a quick overview of how this process works. You'll have to bear with me. Both of these evaluations I have not been involved with. The first one for the Strathcona Community Rail Garden, my colleague Sydney Gross has been working with Kyle on this one and prepared the evaluation document. And then the Long Residence in Windsor Park was prepared by our colleague Jared Althouse, both of whom are busy tonight at a public engagement event. We are in the midst of doing a new management strategy for the heritage team and our program, and just coincidentally, we wound up having a public engagement event this evening. So Jared and Sydney are both attending that. So they've asked me to make the presentations for both these sites on their behalf. So I'll do my best to give a fulsome presentation for each. Forgive me if there's anything specific that gets left out. Feel free to bring up any items along the way, but I'll make these presentations. We'll start with the rail garden, and then we'll open it up for discussion with the review panel and questions, and then we'll move on to the Windsor Park site. So just give me a minute here to share my screen, and we'll get this up and running. And Harrison, I believe you need to leave by 6 ideally, so we want to try to get through these by 6 o'clock just to make sure we have quorum.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so our first site here is a presentation for the application to amend the inventory of historic resources to add the Strathcona Rail Community Garden located at 10543 86th Avenue in the Strathcona neighborhood. Just before I move along, everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So the Strathcona Rail Community Garden is a garden maintained on a triangular shaped piece of city-owned land. It's leased by the group through the city. It's situated in the west portion of the Strathcona neighborhood, north of 85th Avenue, and I guess east of 106th Street. The lot has been used as a community garden space for a very long time, over a century, roughly around 1924. So it's a long established use in the community and is significant as one of the earliest examples of a community garden in Edmonton. So we have a couple of aerial images here. The garden sits just south of the former Calgary and Edmonton rail line, which is now used by the Edmonton Radial Railway's historic streetcar service, as many of us are familiar with. So as if you've taken the streetcar before, you've trundled by the community garden, even if you didn't know it was there. It's right along that pathway, sort of in the northern part of the community. The neighborhood of Strathcona itself has a combined 101 historic resources scattered throughout the neighborhood. Many of these resources have multiple classifications under our system and the provincial system. So, for example, there's one federal historic resource, that's the train station on Gateway. There are 14 designated provincial historic resources in the neighborhood. 4 of those are on the city's inventory, and the other 10 are designated municipal historic resources by the city. There's a total of 18 fully designated municipal historic resources in the community, and 69 sites that are listed on the inventory. For those who aren't aware, inventory of historic resources sites in Edmonton are not legally protected from demolition. Only designated municipal and provincial historic resources are protected as such. So obviously a large concentration of identified historic sites in the neighborhood, pretty much all buildings. This site obviously is more of a cultural landscape type of thing, so we're very interested in seeing this one move along. A little bit of background history. The land that the Strathcona Community Rail Garden sits on is just north of the historic Papaches Reserve in River Lot 11. The 44 river lots that were developed around the North Saskatchewan River significantly affected the layout of the land in this area in post-contact era. The shape of the river lots are reflected today in many instances by the streets of Edmonton, as these long, narrow portions of land that came in from the river into the tablelands allowed for various types of land to be farmed on, as well as direct access to the river. River Lot 11, where this site sits, was originally owned by Joseph McDonald and his family. Joseph and his wife Marguerite settled in Edmonton in the 1870s. They lived on a cabin on Saskatchewan Drive for over 50 years and were part of the original development of the town of Strathcona, which was, of course, later amalgamated into the city of Edmonton in 1912. An important impetus for that amalgamation in 1912 was the construction of the high-level bridge by the Canadian Pacific Railway, which had taken over the Calgary and Edmonton Railway Company. The high-level bridge, which opened in 1913, established direct, efficient transportation connection across the river valley between Edmonton and the former town of Strathcona. The rail connection running northwest from the original Strathcona terminus towards the south end of the high-level bridge cut across portions of the Strathcona town site that had been previously subdivided as gridded blocks that ran east-west. And you can see some of these older subdivision plans, including the 1925 fire insurance plan there, which shows some of the earlier lot layout. This bisecting of the rail line left a number of right-angled triangles of land left over next to the trail line that were rail line that were too small to be developed on. Even back in that era when we were building smaller homes than we seem to today. One of the triangles was on the south side of the rail line between 105th and 106th Street. And this is where the community garden is located today. Well, real obvious evidence of the garden isn't necessarily visible in the aerial images until the 1940s. You can sort of tell that there was something going on there in some of the earlier aerial images, but it's a little hard to tell if there's any active things going on just from these photos. But obviously there's never been any buildings constructed on the site apart from some small sheds. So it certainly lends credence to the fact that the site was not developed in the past and buildings were torn down and then it became a garden later on. It's pretty clear that it's always been an undeveloped site. The Edmonton Horticultural Society was founded in 1909, and in 1912 it was amalgamated with the Strathcona Horticultural Society under the new name Edmonton Horticultural Society. When the Edmonton Horticultural Society and the Vacant Lots Garden Club, which existed at the time, decided to join forces in 1918, the Horticultural Society became the Edmonton Horticultural and Vacant Lots Garden Association, which is quite a handful. The Edmonton Horticultural Society's mission has been to promote city beautification and to provide practical information and assistance to those exploring gardening as a hobby in Edmonton. The programming includes the Vacant Lots Garden Program, which the Society administered on behalf of the City of Edmonton on a number of city-owned vacant properties, annual flower and vegetable shows, which were referred to as bench shows, an annual garden competition, regular speakers program, and organizing volunteers in the creation and maintenance of gardens as public service projects in the community. There is more information and background on the Edmonton Horticultural Society, which is included in Appendix 1 in the full evaluation document that's attached to the meeting agenda. So if you want more information on that, you can take a dive into that. In 2013, an informal dirt road that ran north-south on this through this site between the alley up to towards the rail line was closed to allow the garden to expand westward onto the two westernmost lots that were adjacent to the existing garden at the time. This was done through a formal road closure and a bylaw for rezoning, which rezoned the land from RF4, which at the time was for sort of low density multi-unit housing, to an AP zoning or public parks. The road closure was done to ensure the future use of the land for public park and community garden. So that was, those are formal approvals by City Council that sort of helped enshrine this use more officially on the site. A couple of photos here of the garden, one looking south and one looking north. So it gives you a good sense of how the property is being used. There are some existing signs on the property that give people some information about what's going on. A few more here. Both of these looking west, again to the individual plots that you can see located on the property. There is a shed structure on the site and a memorial plot for a fellow named Ken Nash. Ken immigrated to Canada after the Second World War and spent more than 40 years gardening and mentoring gardeners at the community rail garden site, and his plot was donated to the Youth Empowerment and Support Services Agency for their use and to help young folks who are struggling in other aspects of life, to maybe get them to learn how to do some gardening and channel their energies into some positive types of things. So there's a nice little memorial there for Mr. Nash. And just the last slide here, just a more current aerial photo where you can obviously see the extensive use of the site as a community garden. I'll conclude the presentation there and just identify that the Heritage Conservation Unit is supportive of having the garden site added to the inventory of historic resources. So I'll conclude the presentation there, and then I'll open it up to questions that panel members might have, or any other information that Kyle or anybody else that's here on behalf of the group, if you want to add in anything that you think might be relevant, please maybe do that first, and then the review panel members can ask any questions they have.
Great. Thanks, David. So any other additions or comments that Kyle or anybody else from your group wants to add before we go to any questions?
I just wanted to maybe add, and thank you, David, for the presentation. I thought you covered a lot of ground there, and just to acknowledge that we're joined tonight by Janice, who is a co-chair of the Strathcona Community Garden, the Strathcona Rail Garden. So we appreciate the time she's taken out of her day to join us tonight too, and also for convening earlier this summer a picnic table of gardeners that I had the opportunity to sit with and interview to gather their stories about this special place in their community. They're a very passionate group. They really are eager to see the long-term stewardship of the site, and they were very kind to share some of their stories with me, which made their way, some of the contents of which made their way into the report as well. I think I would just mention that if we could imagine a place where the echoes of steel rails meet the quiet hum of bees, where history isn't locked behind glass but blossoms out in the open air, that place does exist, and that is the Strathcona Rail Garden. So I would also be happy to try to answer any questions if panelists have them, and I would give Janice the opportunity to add anything else, not to put her on the spot though, of course, and I'll leave it there.
Thanks, Kyle.
I guess one other thing, and Kyle or Janice, you would know better than me, but just also in terms of precedent, a little bit of why this is sort of merged here in Edmonton is that the city of Calgary has taken steps to recognize at least one, if not more, community gardens in their city, and I think even potentially designated at least one as a municipal historic resource. So I just for the panel members, there is some precedent for this type of thing in Alberta to recognize these types of sites as historic resources. So.
No, thanks for that, David. And this would be the first in Edmonton, correct? If that happens, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. And I guess, sorry, just thinking in terms of buildings, we designate a building, can't be demolished. In this case, it would be we designate this property, you can't develop it, I guess, right? Like that'd be the same as demolition with the building in this case.
Yeah, if the, and I don't want to charge down the road towards designation or anything necessarily. I mean, at this point in time, the city as owner of the site is supportive of the application to add the site to the inventory. The question and discussion around full designation of the site is really a whole nother matter that would need to have, obviously a lot of consideration and input from the city's real estate team and groups like that. But at this stage, the site has not been declared surplus. There doesn't appear to be any immediate intent for that. There's support by real estate and community services to have the site added to the inventory. So I don't think we're in that situation, where we're scrambling to unload these types of properties. But at this point, we don't have a green light towards designation. That conversation hasn't been engaged with the relevant land management people at the city, at this stage. But if it did go in that direction and there was eventual support to designate the property, then yes, that would prevent any development of buildings on the property, and we would have to look at a framework in that type of scenario of how do we ensure the continued use of the site as a community garden where buildings would be prevented and redevelopment would be prevented, but at the same time we're not hamstringing the association to a particular layout of gardens and, you know, allow a bit of flexibility. So it would take some creative thinking about how we would deal with that. But I did just want to make sure that, you know, it was understood that at this point in time, you know, the city has not given the green light towards full designation of the site, but the city is comfortable with having it added to the inventory.
Great. Thanks, David. Catherine, you had a question?
I thought Kyle's research that was added today indicated that this was when they closed the road, they also rezoned this as parkland. So it really can't be without rezoning.
Yeah.
Redevelop.
Yeah, absolutely, Catherine. They, you know, if
Okay.
the city wanted to have something happen on it, would need to be rezoned to, I mean, technically there are buildings that could be built under the AP zone, but you know, there would need to, you know, if it was some other type of development, it would need to be rezoned and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then the city would have to declare it surplus too. And, you know, all that kind of, there's quite a process before we got to that stage. So.
Yeah, no, good point. Kyle?
Thanks, Harrison. And just to add to the conversation, I appreciate the reference being made to the Calgary example. And I know that some of the context of the conversation to this point has been with the ongoing update to the Heritage Places strategy and some of the more openness to this sort of a lens. There may be opportunity to springboard and sort of see this be advanced, maybe if not in the short term, then the medium term to the designation stage. I do. I guess I am sort of mindful of, in particular, the vacant lot garden in Calgary, which I'm sitting about 200 feet from right now, designates sort of an open space, but leaves a bit of flexibility about how that space could be utilized. I think also in this particular case, as was mentioned during the presentation, given that the lot itself is somewhat marginal for residential development ever in the future, given the limited lane access and being adjacent to the rail as well, this does seem like more of a fit for purpose type of item to bring forward, both for inclusion on the inventory and then ultimately for designation, than any other, for lack of a better phrase, run-of-the-mill garden. It is a very special garden, and for a number of reasons, I think it meets what would be the criteria, personally. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn there, just to say that there's some work still to do on that next piece to see it across the finish line, but I wanted to add that if I may. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Kyle. Any other comments, questions for the applicants? Okay, not seeing anything. Oh, we have Ian joining us. Welcome, Ian. Oh, you're just on mute there.
Sorry, my apologies, everyone.
Yeah, no problem. We're just I'm about to put a motion on the floor here for the rail garden item.
Perfect.
So I will move that the Historic Resources Review Panel recommend to the Edmonton Historical Board that the Strathcona Rail Community Garden, located at 10543 86th Avenue Northwest in the Strathcona neighborhood, for inclusion on the inventory of historical resources in Edmonton.
Second.
Great. All in favor? Hands, or you do this. Perfect. Any opposed? Probably not. Great.
Just sorry, Harrison and Kyle, I don't mean to point fingers at you or anything. And just, you are the applicant for this. To have the, I'm just wondering if it should be seconded by somebody else. Just, I don't know, at the point of order type of thing, but just you are applicant of this, and I just want to make sure we're, you know, fully transparent and stuff. So
I thought if I myself am the city as the applicant and landowner, then that's a bit of a promotion in my view, but I'm happy to defer if there's somebody else to make the second.
Sorry, no obvious, no ill intent involved with your seconding of the motion, but I just thought you are the applicant of record on this file. So
that's okay. Well, all right. Yeah.
Okay. No, that's yeah, thanks, Dave. That's I guess you can't second your own application, I guess. Yeah, that's fair. Ian, did I see your hand go up for seconding it? Okay, we'll say it's seconded by Ian. And actually, Catherine, I noticed I had a spelling error here. I just wanted to put inventory of historic resources, not historical resources. Just a minor edit, but just
That's
sure
correct.
what we have. Yeah, in the record is correct. Yeah. Okay. So motion's passed, seconded by Ian. I think we're all good with this item, I believe. Great. Thanks for bringing us forward, David and Kyle. And Janice, thank you for attending today. Dorothy, you have a question.
Yes. I'm sorry, I arrived late. I did read all of the material that was circulated, although I suspect that there was maybe some extras added to the presentation. And I was wondering, I have absolutely no quarrel with the decision that's been made. I think that's great. But I would be interested to see your presentation, Kyle. I don't know if you could possibly share that with me.
Well, it'll be David who's able to speak to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I can, Dorothy. I don't think there was anything in the presentation that's not in the evaluation document itself. I don't think we added anything into the presentation that wasn't in the. Yeah, I think it's all there.
Given that
So, and Dorothy, this is being transcribed, so you can see the whole full transcription of everything David said.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you.
You wanted to make a comment there, Kyle.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just to say that it's also recorded and live streamed on YouTube, so you can listen to it almost as though you were there in the first place.
Wonderful. I will do that. Thank you.
Okay, and those associated with the community garden application, you're welcome to stay on for the second part of the meeting today if you want to see the evaluation for this house in Windsor Park. If not, feel free to step off the call. Thanks for your time and your attendance. And Kyle will keep you certainly posted. You'll know because you're on the board. But when the application goes to the board on the 26th, you know, if the motion is recommended by the supported by the historical board, we always reach out to applicants just to let them know the outcome of that. So,
yeah. Oh, Janice.
Yes, I'd just like to thank you very much for considering this and carrying it forward. I know these gardeners are like so excited about this, and we really appreciate it. So thanks, and I'm going to take off.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Janice.
Bye now.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and we're very pleased that, you know, Kyle approached us about this and brought the idea to our attention. It really, as he noted, dovetails well with the emerging new direction that we want the program to expand into with the Heritage Places strategy and start recognizing sites that aren't old buildings. And, you know, this is a great example of a long-standing use that's got, you know, great connections to a very historic neighborhood. So we're really pleased that it's come forward and looking forward to next steps with it. So I'll move on now to just let me organize myself here so I don't get confused on the presentations. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll get the second one up for the long residence here. Okay. All right, and again, just begging forgiveness for any omissions or things that I miss on this one. This evaluation was prepared by our colleague Jared Althouse, who's at that engagement session this evening. So I'm basically just going to run through a presentation that he provided me, and then we can have a discussion on this site. So the next presentation is for an application to amend the inventory of historic resources to add the Long residence, which is located at 11615 Saskatchewan Drive Northwest in the Windsor Park neighborhood. The Long residence is a 2.5-story dwelling that was constructed in 1931. Some of the more prominent features of the building are reflected in its Georgian Revival architecture influences, including a hipped roof with chimney, white stucco cladding, front and rear dormers, bay windows with a flat roof, and a front entrance with a simply decorated pediment. So Just got a few aerial images here on the next couple of slides. So the Long residence occupies a single lot near the end of the block on 116th Street Northwest, and it fronts onto Saskatchewan Drive with views of the North Saskatchewan River Valley. The dwelling is located on Lot 7, Block 36, and you can see it there on the aerial photo with the red arrow pointing towards where the property is located. And another aerial here just showing the location of the lot, and you can see the proximity to Saskatchewan Drive and University of Alberta further to the east. And the majority of the neighborhood in this area is comprised of single detached dwellings, many of which have a heritage character. Despite the original development started occurring in Windsor Park, in the early 1900s, really, and then in the lead up to the real estate crash in 1913, things really came to a halt. Wasn't a lot of development, but there were a few original homes built in the sort of 1910s era. So there's a lot of history in Windsor Park in that sense. Not a lot happened for a large chunk, and then sort of in the post-Second World War era, the city had acquired some of the land back from the original developers and replotted much of the neighborhood, and that's sort of when development really took off into the sort of neighborhood layout that we see today. But there is certainly a long history of development in the Windsor Park area. Not reflected super well in large number of identified historic buildings in the neighborhood. The orange dots identify some of the inventory of historic resources that are currently located in the neighborhood. The blue dots are 2 designated municipal historic resources. The northerly blue lot closest to the Long residence is the George Harcourt residence. And on the south side of 87th Avenue is St. George's Anglican Church. Those are the only 2 designated buildings in the neighborhood, and then really just sort of a small handful of other inventory sites. The Windsor Park subdivision was originally registered in 1911 for a portion of the original River Lot 3, which is located between Saskatchewan Drive to the north and University Avenue to the south. You can see it shown there on the map. That's the Lot 7 where the house is located, and you can sort of get a sense of on the sort of image further to the right there, you can sort of see the River Lot 3 layout with the original subdivision plan of Windsor Park that has been largely altered. That slow growth during the interwar depression era occurred. There was a small pocket of residential development that did occur in the northern part of the neighborhood, adjacent to and in proximity to Saskatchewan Drive and the River Valley, those sort of more desirable lots in the earlier part. And then the subdivision plan sort of for the southern portion of the neighborhood was redone in the post-Second World War era to facilitate development. The historic aerial image on the left here dates to 1930, before construction. There's only a small cluster of existing buildings in the area at this time, with most of them tucked near the River Valley over towards the university. The aerial image on the right is from 1943 and shows that the dwelling has now been constructed. And it's hard to see in the photo there, but the Long residence is one of the first dwellings constructed in the Windsor Park neighborhood, concentrated on that northeast side of Saskatchewan Drive. So that, even in 1943, you can really see it's just that sort of northeast quadrant component of the neighborhood that was really built out, and the rest of it was fairly sparse at that time. This last image here dates to 1948, and at this time you can start to see that roadways are starting to form throughout the neighborhood based on the new subdivision plan layout. And residential development is still largely concentrated in that northeast corner, but is starting to trickle further to the south. So a few slides here of just the current condition of the building with some recent photos. The first image shows the front or the north elevation of the dwelling and shows a central doorway with a simple pediment above the entrance. There's a symmetry of the windows, including the bay windows on the lower level and the second story windows with shutters. There's a large dormer on the roof line. The building is clad in white stucco and currently has asphalt shingles. And there's a chimney you can see in the photo there on the west side, right-hand side of the building. So a few additional more detailed photos, some of the key details, including one of the bay windows, the door entrance with the pediment structure, the upper dormer above the main entrance with an arched roof line, and one of the second story windows with the shutters and the chimney, stucco clad chimney in the back. It is worth noting that the large front dormer that we see at the top right was adjusted with the sort of arched roof line sometime over the last 10 years or so. The original appearance is shown later in, we have some historic photos later in the slide deck here. And that roof line was more of a flat roof line on the dormer. So that is an alteration that's been made to the building. The side yards are a little narrow, so these photos do their best to show angles of the east and west elevations from the front and back of the house, respectively. It's noted that all exterior windows have been upgraded. I'm assuming to vinyl units, but I'm not entirely sure. Somebody from, I don't know if one of the representatives of the owners may be here. But the windows were designed with mullions and sash bars to reflect the heritage character of the building, and certainly not unusual to see historic houses with window replacements. Of course, we're quite used to that. The image on the left shows the rear or the south elevation of the building, and the image on the right that you can see there shows the back of the house prior to this addition that was made in 1996. So that when you look at the photo on the left, you can sort of see how the addition was added in 1996 and basically extended out the first story of the house into the backyard to add living and bedroom space. So another alteration to the building at this time at the rear. One other aspect that Jared wanted to note is that there's a lot of good documentation on this house. The owners possess the original blueprints for the dwelling and some historic images dating to the time of construction. These images here show the original design with the architect's initials, CSB, identifying Cecil Scott Burgess, who of course is a noted architect in Alberta, was the university architect at the University of Alberta, I guess the only university architect at the University of Alberta for many years, and ran the architecture program there, and was a noted architect in his own right. It's also worth noting that the original design of the house that we can see in these drawings presented 3 dormers on the front elevation and 1 at the rear, which housed the stairwell to the attic. At the time of construction, it was decided that 1 larger dormer was to be built on the front and 2 additional flanking dormers were to be added at the rear. So a change in the from original drawings to construction, again, something we see quite often. But it's good to have these original plans so we can sort of make reference to that. These photos here are showing the building at time of construction. So we can see, just going to move this out of the way here, at the left-hand photo is the front elevation looking towards Saskatchewan Drive. You can see the bay windows on the lower level. on the flat roof dormer on the front with the chimney on the west side there. And then the other two photos are showing the rear elevation with the two dormers that were added on the rear elevation prior to the 1996 alterations. So these give us a really good sense of what the house looked like originally, and allows us to sort of read how it's been adjusted over the years. One last photo here, a nice wintry view of the building from Saskatchewan Drive prior to trees growing and things like that. So we have a nice view of how the house sat relative to Saskatchewan Drive at that early time. One other aspect that Jared, just for brevity, didn't include in the presentation, but we wanted to just touch on, and I'll just sort of go over a little bit of this information if you'll bear with me for a moment or two here. The Long residence is associated with only 4 families since its construction. The first owner was Morden Heaton Long and Isabel Winifred Long. Morden was born in Brantford, Ontario in 1886 and had a Bachelor of Arts from Master and another and an MA from Oxford University in 1912 and 1924. Morden and Isabella married in 1927 and had 2 daughters, Alice and Isabella Grace. Morden taught at Victoria Composite High School and then moved over to the University of Alberta in 1918 and served as a lecturer of history before becoming an assistant professor, an associate professor, and eventually the head of the Department of History from 1925 to 1952. Very common association in Windsor Park to have staff and professors at the U of A living in Windsor Park. Long was primarily a historian of Britain and Europe history, but he also taught courses in Canadian history. He published 2 books during his tenure at the university, and was eventually elected to various positions throughout his life, including General Faculty's Council for Arts and Sciences, the Philosophical Society and History Club, and the Graduate and Students Committee at membership in the University of Alberta Senate in the early 30s, and a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada in 1949, and President of the Canadian Historical Association in 1953. So a noted individual there. Julie McMaster lived briefly with the Long family as a student, and she became a distinguished scholar and professor of 18th and 19th century English literature and a specialist in Jane Austen. She was an avid fencer and qualified for Canada's fencing team in 1965. The residence passed to Isabella Long, one of the daughters, shortly after Morden's death in 1965, and remained in the family until it was sold to Garth and Faye Warnock in 1995. Dr. Garth Warnock was on the team that pioneered the Edmonton Protocol, revolutionary treatment for type 1 diabetes that is internationally recognized. The Warnocks were the family that added the rear addition in 1996, shortly after their purchase of the building. There were some other owners that had the property in the early 2000s, and then it was sold to Robert and Danica Wolkow. Dr. Robert Wolkow was a founder of the Nanotechnology Institute at the University of Alberta campus, and the Wolkows replaced the exterior windows and modified the front-facing dormer with that arched roof line. It's just an interesting aspect of the building that this house has housed 3 fellows of the Royal Society of Canada, 8, including Dr. Long, Professor Juliet McMaster, and Dr. Robert Wolkow. So just wanted to add in that sort of person connection that this house has. And then, of course, as I mentioned in the presentation, the design by Cecil Burgess is also significant with his role at the University of Alberta, heading up the architecture program there, and then his own work as a architect and community planner advocate as well. He had a radio show and and advocated for, community design and things like that in throughout Alberta, and was involved in some of the very early decision making in some of the layout of Windsor Park, including the location of the North Park in Windsor Park that Patsy's been involved with our team and stuff as well. So some interesting historical associations with this site. With that, I will conclude my presentation, and we're available for any questions. It would be our recommendation that this building be added to the inventory of historic resources, and open it up for discussion with the panel. Thank you.
Perfect. No, thanks, David, for all that history, and thanks to your team, Garrett specifically, for putting it all together. And I think I have one of the family or the owners here, D. Wolko. Is that Danica Wolko present tonight?
Yep, that's correct, Danica.
Great. No, thank you for joining us. Anything else you'd like to add before we go into questions or comments?
No, I just wanted to thank everybody for putting this application together. I really appreciate it, and yeah, thank you for putting it forward. Unfortunately, I have to leave very shortly. I have another meeting to go to, but thank you so much.
No, and thank you for bringing this forward. As David mentioned, there's not too many homes in Windsor Park or that area in general in the city on the inventory, let alone the municipal historic resource list. So that's great to see one come across our panel here tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any questions from the panel? Any comments for Danica before she leaves, or for David on the presentation? Ian's got his hand up. Go ahead.
It's just a question more than anything else. How are the building interiors? Do they retain the historic character of the building too, David, or have they been knocked around through various additions and renovations?
If Danica's still there, I'd have to ask her. I haven't been to the house before. Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
Actually, they're pretty perfect. We're for better or for worse, we're suckers for old houses. And this house, it's very lucky, because the main floor of this house, none of the trim has been painted. The floors are original, and I'm not talking about the rear addition. I'm talking about the main historical part of the house. The floors are original. None of the trim's painted. All the woodwork's original. The stuff, the plaster, all the walls are plastered, and I'm constantly arguing with my husband over whether we can actually put a nail in the wall to put a picture up. Yeah, everything is pretty original, including the lack of insulation upstairs in the bedrooms.
No, we often don't include interiors in our designations here at the municipal level, but at the same time, it's always really good when we have properties that have that integrity. So well done.
Yeah. And in fact, there are leaded windows that are on either side of the fireplace. And in the dining room, the only thing we did was actually seal them from the outside to help with the heating. And a lot of the lighting fixtures are even original. So.
That's great.
Oh, yeah, great to hear. Any other comments, questions for Danica before she pops off here? Oh, Dorothy, go ahead.
Okay, there. I've unmuted myself. It's the comments that I wanted to make has it's only sort of tangential to this this building. Well, I guess it does involve it. That Cecil Scott Burgess was, of course, the head of the architecture school from 1913 to 1940. And he also designed some of the ring houses, the late lamented ring houses on the U of A campus, which were only, I don't know, a block and a half, really, away from this house. They were much earlier. They're from essentially pre-World War I.
Yeah.
But I think it is interesting and significant that this is an example of Burgess's design work, and because of its adjacency to the campus, I think it obviously was conceived as being a home for an academic in a very similar way to the ring houses. So I just thought I would throw that extra little sort of slant on things in there.
Right.
Yeah, and I think in fact Cecil Burgess lived in one of the ring houses originally before he moved to one of the.
Yes, yes, he did. Yes,
Yeah.
you're correct. Yeah.
Great. No, thanks, Dorothy. Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns about this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. David, so we mentioned in your presentation that this is pretty central in this part of the city of Edmonton. It's adjacent to the U of A. It just did not develop as recently or as early as U of A, just due to like probably a world war disrupting the pattern of development. Because like being one of the first houses, from is it 1930, 31?
31, yeah.
Yeah. You go to Garneau, like just a few blocks east, and there's houses from 20 years earlier, right? So it's just due to probably land factors or something that led to that delay.
Yeah, it was just I think the real estate crash in 1913, and this area was a little bit more remote, than Garneau. Obviously, it was just a bit closer to the town site of Strathcona. Just a variety of factors, and just the real estate crash, and then the war, and just didn't get a lot of development happening in the area. And so, and Patsy would know. Knows more of this chapter and verse than I do, but a lot of the land was eventually reacquired by the city as it was just sitting vacant, and then there was sort of replotting, re-subdivision work done to spur development, particularly in that sort of post-Second World War era, with the baby boom and just people coming back and all that kind of stuff. So it's not an unusual situation. There are other neighborhoods where some of these like the Capitol Hill area in Glenora, for example, sat idle for a long time and was replotted a couple of times. North Glenora was done the same. Like it does happen, and so this is sort of another example of where that was done. But that sort of northeast quadrant, nearest to the university and nearest to the river valley, was obviously the most desirable part of the neighborhood at the time, and that's where we saw some of that earlier parts of the development there.
Great. No, thanks for that, David. Okay, yes, Danica, go ahead.
Just before I do go, I just wanted to thank and recognize Patsy for spotting that it was Cecil Burgess who designed this house. We had that, it came with the house, that blueprint, and it was actually Patsy that said, "Wait a minute."
These initials look familiar.
Yeah.
There is nothing about Windsor Park that Patsy doesn't know. So.
No, thanks for that. Yeah, the notable architects are always something that we like to hear about as well when we have applications coming forward. So that's great, especially Burgess being a noted one in the city of Edmonton here. Okay, so I'm going to put this motion on the floor here for us to consider. I will move that the Historic Resources Review Panel recommend to the Edmonton Historical Board that the Long residence, located at 11615 Saskatchewan Drive Northwest in the Windsor Park neighborhood, for inclusion on the inventory of historic resources in Edmonton. Kyle, you can second this if you want.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Thanks. Anybody voting in opposition to this motion? Let's just go there. Okay, not surprised. Perfect. Great. No, so thanks, Danica. Then we're going to take this forward to the Historical Board next week, actually, on Wednesday, for formal approval. And pending any catastrophes in the meantime, very confident that it will be approved, but we'll have to go through the process. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm going to say good night. Thank you.
Yep. Perfect. Thanks for coming.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So that'll be our next action here. We'll be taking that forward with the Strathcona community gardens, rail community gardens, Strathcona Rail Community Gardens. So
That's a
taking those both
question
forward.
I had, Harrison, is,
Yep.
and this is maybe something we can confirm between now and next week. Apologies, I didn't ask the question earlier, and I know we're about to run out of time, but I believe that there's a move away from the use of community in the name for particular reasons. So let's take that offline. But I don't think it affects anything. Like, it is the same thing, but just a branding exercise, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, the board, they can always amend, I think, a motion. Like, they could decide to change the name if they like. So yeah, definitely something we can discuss when it comes forward to the board next week.
Yeah.
Good flag. Yeah, maybe Catherine or some other board members might, have some more information on that front. So definitely can discuss it.
I know for sure I'm going to be seeing a lot of the gardeners this weekend, so I can inquire.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Bring some intel. Awesome. Okay. With that, I think that concludes our agenda, our formal agenda for tonight. Pending any last minute comments, questions, seeing anything popping up here. Perfect. Okay. So I will move that we adjourn the meeting of the HRRP 5:57 p.m.
And then,
Voting.
Catherine, I don't believe we have a meeting in December. We don't have any pending applications, and the panel doesn't generally meet in December anyways. But just confirm if that's the case, and if not, we'd be meeting again in January, I guess.
When we did meet in December, it was usually for social activities.
Yes.
So we don't do that anymore because we have no budget. No, we don't meet in December.
Okay. Well, we'll do our best to track if we have any emerging applications for the January meeting and let Mitchell know as soon as we can on that front. But for the time being, just hold that date in January just in case, I guess. So.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a good flag there, David. All right. Meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
Everybody have a good night. Thanks for
Bye.
coming.
Thanks.
Thank
Thanks for coming,
Bye-bye.
Kathy.
Yep.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.